So for our deep dive today, we're going to start with a tombstone. Not for a general or, a president, but for Charles Bukowski, the poet, the gambler.
The alcoholic, the self-proclaimed loser. I mean, it's not exactly the resume you look for when you're seeking out life advice.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Which is exactly why his story is such a perfect place to start. He desperately wanted to be a writer, but he spent decades just
getting rejection letters.
Yeah.
His work was called crude, depraved, disgusting, and he worked this soul-crushing job at the post office until he was almost 50.
50. I mean, conventional wisdom, the whole American dream narrative would frame his story as a triumph, right? The moment he finally gets that book deal for post office, it's all about persistence, about never giving up.
But that's the twist. If you go to his grave, his epitaph is just 2 words. Don't try.
Okay, let's unpack that. Don't try. That is a monumental inversion of everything we're taught.
It is, because Bukowski's real genius wasn't that he, overcame the odds and became a winner. It was his total acceptance of himself as a failure.
He just leaned into it. He accepted the worst parts of himself and wrote about that, honestly.
Exactly. He didn't try to be something he wasn't, and that's, weirdly, why he won.
And this really confronts a huge problem in our culture today.
Yeah.
We are just drowning in messages telling us to focus on these unrealistic positive expectations.
Oh, absolutely. Be happier, be the best, be perfect, be richer, sexier, more popular than everyone you know.
And that constant fixation on the positive, it ironically just puts a laser focus on what you feel you lack.
Right? Think about it. If you're constantly repeating affirmations about being beautiful, you're just reinforcing the deep down feeling that you're unbeautiful.
Or if you're desperately looking for relationship advice, you're reinforcing the idea that you're unlovable right now.
The world is just screaming at you to give a fuck about everything. Your personal brand, the new phone, that new diet. But giving a fuck about too many things.
Especially trivial things.
It's just so bad for your mental health. So that's our mission today. We're going to explore this subtle art of not giving a damn. We're diving into how accepting negative experiences actually leads to real progress.
And how success isn't about the goals, but about the struggles you're willing to choose.
To start, we have to talk about something called the feedback loop from hell.
The feedback loop from hell. I think I live there sometimes.
Don't we all? It's a destructive cycle where you feel bad about feeling bad, you get anxious, and then you feel anxious about feeling anxious.
Or you feel guilty for feeling guilty. And social media just throws gasoline on that fire, doesn't it? You scroll through your feed, and it's all perfect weddings, perfect vacations.
Perfect everything. Meanwhile, you're just having a normal, boring Tuesday. And that contrast makes your own negative feelings, your anxiety, your disappointment feel like a personal failing.
Generations ago, if you had a bad day, you just had a bad day.
You just think, well, that was a rotten day. Tomorrow's another one. There wasn't a constant global broadcast of perfection telling you that your normal feelings of inadequacy were wrong.
So how do you break the loop?
The beauty is how simple it is. You just stop giving a fuck that you feel bad. It's this moment of, internal rebellion.
You just accept the feeling and move on. You stop hating yourself for being human.
Precisely. And this leads us to the core paradox of this whole idea, which the philosopher Alan Watts called the backwards law.
The backwards law. Okay.
The core idea is this. The desire for more positive experience is itself a negative experience.
Wait, hang on. Run that by me again.
Yeah.
So desperately wanting to be happy is the very thing that makes me unhappy.
That's it. And the flip side is that the acceptance of one's negative experience is in itself a positive experience. It's completely counterintuitive, but it works.
I think the easiest example here is money. The more you desperately chase the idea of being rich, the more you focus on that gap.
The poorer and more unworthy you feel. It doesn't matter how much you actually have. That desperate wanting just reinforces what you lack.
But the backwards law can work for us, right? If you pursue the negative, it can generate the positive.
Yes, think about the gym. The physical pain you intentionally pursue there results in better health. Business failures lead to a deeper understanding of what actually works.
Cutting your insecurities makes you more confident. So what you're saying is that everything worthwhile is won by consciously facing down the negative stuff associated with it.
Exactly. Avoiding suffering is just another form of suffering. Denying failure is just another failure. True freedom is found when you stop caring about the temporary pain required for growth.
Which connects to this bigger idea that pain and suffering are just part of the deal. They're woven into the fabric of being alive.
The story of the Buddha is the perfect example. Here's a prince, totally shielded from all suffering. His father creates this perfect bubble of luxury for him.
But he's miserable. Despite having everything, he finds it all empty.
It's only when he sneaks out of the palace and sees sickness and old age and death for the first time that he has his realization.
And the insight is that life is suffering, in a way. The rich suffer because of their riches. The poor suffer from their poverty. It's not a bug in the system, it's a feature.
It's inevitable. Resisting it is futile. This is where we bring in our mascot for this idea. Disappointment Panda.
Disappointment Panda.
Oh.
The hero we need, but not the one we want.
Right. He's the one who tells you the harsh truths you need to hear. And his main truth is that psychological pain, just like physical pain, is just feedback. It's telling you something is out of balance.
And his other big truth. Problems never go away, they just get better.
Exactly. Warren Buffett doesn't worry about paying his rent. He has much, much better money problems to worry about.
So that shifts the entire question. It's not what do you want out of life?
Yeah.
That's easy. I want to be happy, have a great family.
The real question, the defining one is, what pain do you want in your life? What are you willing to struggle for?
That is a powerful reframe. People want the perfect body, but they don't want the daily grind and the pain of the gym.
They want the successful business, but not the risk, the uncertainty, the insane hours. They love the idea of the summit, but they hate the climb.
And the author's own story about wanting to be a rock star fits right in. He didn't fail because he wasn't talented. He failed because he loved the result, the roaring crowd.
But not the process, the endless rehearsals, the broken strings, the lonely nights on the road, the actual struggle.
So we have to see our emotions as just signposts then, not commandments.
They're just feedback. And if you fixate on them, you end up on what's called the hedonic treadmill, always chasing the next high, the next purchase, only to end up back where you started.
This constant need for positive feelings leads right into what you call the entitlement trap.
It really does. This idea took hold in the 70s with things like grade inflation and participation trophies. The idea that self-esteem came from just feeling good about yourself.
But the data shows that's not true. Feeling good about yourself means nothing unless you have a real, earned reason to feel good.
Right. Adversity and failure are essential for building strong adults. When you teach everyone they're exceptional just for showing up, you get people like
Jimmy. Jimmy, the delusional entrepreneur.
The guy who believes his own positive spin, runs up debt, and calls any criticism haters being jealous. He feels entitled to success without the struggle.
So true self-worth isn't about how you feel about your good qualities.
No, it's about how you feel about your negative aspects. A person with high self-worth can look at their failures and say, yeah, I screwed that up, and then work to improve. They accept the negative.
This comes back to suffering for purpose, the story of Hiroo Onoda, the Japanese soldier who hid in the jungle for 30 years after World War II ended.
It's an extreme example, but perfect. He suffered unimaginably, but he said he regretted nothing. Because for him, that suffering had a purpose, loyalty to the emperor. His values made the struggle meaningful.
And the tragic twist is when he finally goes back to Japan in the 70s and finds this consumerist, superficial culture.
And the realization that his 30 years of suffering had meant nothing to this new world, that hurt him more than any physical hardship ever did.
So if suffering is inevitable, the question we have to ask is, why am I suffering? For what purpose?
And that purpose is defined by our values. You see this play out everywhere. Look at Dave Mustaine from Megadeth.
Sold 25 million albums. By any objective measure, a massive success.
But he considered himself a failure. Why? Because he measured himself against Metallica, who sold 180 million albums. His metric was external and completely out of his control.
Now contrast that with Pete Best, the original drummer for the Beatles.
Kicked out right before they blew up. He fell into a deep depression, but eventually he changed his values. He stopped measuring himself against the Beatles and started measuring success by having a loving family, a stable marriage.
And he ended up happier, he said, than he would have been with all that fame and money, because his values became internal and controllable.
So we need to be clear about what good and bad values are. Bad values are things like pleasure, material success, always being right. They're often uncontrollable or just a form of avoidance.
And good values?
Good values are reality-based, they're controllable, things like honesty, embracing uncertainty, focusing on actions you can take right now.
To put those values into practice, we have to talk about responsibility. We all know the Spider-Man line, with great power comes great responsibility.
But we need to flip it. With great responsibility comes great power.
And this hinges on separating responsibility from fault. You're not at fault if you get robbed.
But you are always responsible for how you respond to it. You choose whether to be a victim or to learn something from it. That's where the power is. Taking responsibility is how you grow.
Okay, next up. The danger of certainty.
Certainty is the enemy of growth. The moment you're sure you're right, you stop learning. Our brains are meaning-making machines, but they're incredibly biased toward what we already believe.
We'll literally invent rules and reasons to explain random events, just to feel like we're in control and that our worldview is correct.
Look at the false memory syndrome epidemic from the 80s. People, desperate for an explanation for their current pain, were susceptible to inventing these elaborate memories of abuse. Our minds will do anything to create a coherent story.
So the call to action is self-skepticism. Assume you might be wrong. Actively search for doubt in your own beliefs.
And finally, let's talk about commitment and rejection. The author realized after years of travel that absolute freedom by itself means nothing.
Meaning requires rejecting alternatives. You find depth by committing to one person, one place, one craft. You are defined by what you choose to say no to.
This is so critical for healthy relationships. Unhealthy love is about using your partner as an escape from your problems.
Healthy love is two people solving their own problems with mutual support, which means you need boundaries. You need the ability to say no and to hear no.
Without that conflict, without that rejection, you can't build real trust. The relationship becomes conditional and you fall into that toxic victim and saver dynamic.
So the final value, the one that puts all of this into perspective, is mortality.
Right. Ernest Becker argued that we all have this deep death terror and we build these immortality projects, our legacies, our values, to cope with it.
So my desire to write a book or build a company is just my way of yelling, I was here, into the void.
In a way, yeah. But accepting your own death, really being comfortable with it, is the antidote. It frees you to choose your values without being driven by this illogical need for immortality.
The author's story about his friend's death is powerful here. He realized that if there's no ultimate reason to do anything, then there's also no reason not to do anything.
And accepting death makes all the other struggles, the entitlement, the fear of failure, the fear of rejection, it just makes them feel lighter, less important.
Which brings us to the do something principle. If you're unmotivated, don't wait for inspiration. That's backwards.
Action creates inspiration, which then creates motivation. Just do something, anything. Even failing pushes you forward.
We're all gonna die, all of us. What a circus. That alone should make us love each other, but it doesn't. We are terrorized and flattened by life's trivialities. We are eaten up by nothing.
Your greatness is already there. It's in your ability to choose what you give a fuck about.
So, we'll leave you with this question. If you truly accept that struggle is necessary and that everything is temporary, what trivial thing are you choosing to let terrorize you today? Don't try.